So there will be spoilers in this, so if you haven't watched Akagami, I would just have to say go watch it. Or if you just don't care about spoilers, then let's get started. So basically, the first episode of this, I felt like it was very rushed, and if you don't know what the show's about at all, then basically it's about this girl who is chosen by the king or the prince of this land to be a concubine. If you don't know what a concubine is, it's basically a mistress. And because she has some dignity to herself, she ran away. And it was very rushed in the first episode because it was just like she got chosen, she ran away, and then it was like this is all in like 5 minutes, and then the rest of the show just started about him like coming after her, and I was just like, I wish we got a little bit more on like the Prince stuff because they really had a whole thing about like mirror mirror on the wall, and then the apple, the red apple that happens in Snow White and stuff, and I'm just like, kind of little, you're hitting a little close to home on the Snow White shit, and they really just kind of dropped that later on, I mean like the second episode. They just dropped it like after that. It was very weird. I don't know why they even put it in the first episode. I guess they just did it for a callback for like first episode, look what we got Snow White and whatever. But it's only really Snow White in name only, and aesthetic, nothing really else. But the first couple episodes were very weird. The first episode was a rush. Second episode I felt like wasn't placed right, or like was again because the rush pace the first episode. The second episode didn't feel very good. It did get utilized in the later part of the episode, which is basically like the next episode or the episode after that. It was utilized because she says that basically she was being saved in the second episode. She was being saved by Zen. She was saved by Zen in the first episode as well. And then I was just like, well, if this is gonna be a whole show about her being saved by a prince, this show is gonna be pretty ass, and it's gonna be like I'm not gonna like it that much. But then she was basically she didn't want to be saved anymore, and then she said she's not gonna be saved again at the point in like the fourth episode or the third episode or whatever. So then at that point, she was never saved again in the whole show, which was nice, and she actually fended for herself. And she actually did what she wanted to do and didn't have any help doing it, which was nice. And I was glad that they set it up just like she was being helped, and then she said, I don't want to be helped anymore. And it actually, like, the prince listened, like, the Zen, the main character or whatever, listened. And then, she kind of goes on. She's like, I'm going to be a badass. And she's kind of a badass a little bit, I guess. I mean, could have done better. But let's just get into this all. I got to say, the show was kind of like man for me. Until she became a court herbalist, and between that point, I mean, it was really like the show really started at that point because kind of the whole point of the show is like her and Zen in the castle together and them growing upon each other. So that's kind of like the whole point of the show. And before that, it was kind of just it was weird because the third episode was really focusing on like the open world. Like he like Zen would go out in the world and then show like he would show Snow White the whole like world and shit, and he's like, I like to go around the world. So I was thinking we are gonna get like a whole big world aspect of the show, but really what it was just like him showing that he actually cares about the world, and then they kind of just go back to the kingdom. And I don't know how I felt about that. I feel like it's just like they're kind of blue balling you on like what they were gonna do, and then they're just like, now let's just condense this down to the kingdom itself into the castle. So but I mean, it did work for the show because it was really focusing on the two main characters and what they do to basically move themselves forward from one another, and how she wants to become a court herbalist so then she can fend for herself and do what she loves to do, and how Prince Zen becomes a better prince than what he already is, and basically that's why he doesn't leave the castle that much after basically like the fourth or fifth episode. And it works pretty well. I wish they would have done a lot more with like the whole world itself, but for what it was doing with the smaller aspects, it was fine. The pace in the show was pretty good, besides like the first episode and the second episode. And it didn't linger on any plots. I'd have to say, like the plots on this romance, I was really thinking it was gonna be like, oh damn, we're gonna get like some freaking like it's gonna be linger on this plot against Zen and Snow White and how like, oh, I love you and you love me and we're not gonna be together right now. But no, it actually did work for what it was, because Prince Zen is obviously a noble, and then Snow White is obviously a lower, like, one of the commoners. So basically, this works well in the show on how they both like can't be together, and how it's they have to kind of figure out what they really want from each other. and it doesn't linger on this, long enough that it lingers on it long enough that that there's some structure here with different plots that go on the show, and then they eventually do realize that they want to be together, and then they actually do get together. So I do like that in the show, how they don't linger on any plots and actually move forward when it needs to be. And then they do have a kiss in the show. That's not the last episode, and then they have the aftermath of the kiss, and it actually moves along pretty well, which I actually did like on the show. Is they're actually done pretty well. The one thing I gotta say was the worst part about the show would have to be the characters. The characters in the show were not that good, except the two main characters. They did kind of get a little bit on each one of not really on each one of the characters. You got a sense of like everyone's a friend. Everyone kind of kind of looks out for one another and everything. And you got, the guard character, you got Obi. He got a little bit, but not much. It was really more focused on Zen and Snow White and their relationship together, and how it's really, that was the whole nature of the show. Like it's kind of just like you're gonna get a whole bunch of this in 12 episodes. So they kind of were really bringing home Zen and Snow White, and then they couldn't focus on like any of the other characters. They could have, but they didn't, and they really were more focused on the two main characters, which did fine, and it was well done. But again, like it's just like, which one are you gonna have? Like more side character shit, and I get a lot more with Zen and Snow White. You're gonna have a lot of Zen and Snow White, or no main character shit, or no side character shit. So kind of got to get a little bit of that, which was fine. So it really was weird because it seemed like they were gonna set up an Obi relationship thing, like kind of like a subplot with this Obi and Snow White were gonna happen. I don't really know, because it didn't really lead to anything, and it actually does make sense on why it would happen, because he became her basically bodyguard, and she talked to him a lot about problems and shit. So I was just wondering, like, they didn't do anything with it. It was like he felt something towards her, but then it didn't really lead to anything, and maybe they will bring this up in season 2, because season 2's already announced for winter 2016. So maybe they're lead it in for the season 2, but I don't know. For right now, it's just like, it was just kind of there for about 2 seconds. It wasn't really much of anything. About Zen in the show, I'd have to say I was very actually surprised that his character actually did develop, and we actually got backstory and motivations for actually him becoming a good prince, and like different motivations. He had multiple motivations to becoming a good prince, which was surprising, because the first couple episodes was really seeing how he was a perfect man, like, perfect prince. We're in the Disney World and shit, and he's like the most perfect man in the world. But then you actually get to see some backstory and motivations, and some it's not like bullshit. Like it was pretty nice. I was like, oh, okay, that's, at least you're doing something. And this leads into stuff with the older brother that he has, and how that older brother is kind of like the ideal prince and shit, and he wants to be just like his older brother, and he tries to be, and he's really kind of in the shadow and everything. And I really like that. I was really just kind of like, okay, that's nice. Also, with the older brother shit, it really did bring back a callback to the other prince that was in the first episode, which I was just like, oh, okay, these plot lines that happen aren't just one-off episodes. They actually come back, and they actually mean something for the show. When you have like when they go to the place and they actually help out one people that people are like basically about to die or whatever in this village, and then they help them out, and then and then the older brother comes, and he's just like, okay, now you did this, now you're going to discipline these guys, they're going to do whatever, and then if you don't do this, then consequences will be made. So there's consequences for every action that the prince does, and not just the prince, but like in these different subplots, there's like these different consequences on each episode. Like they bring it back on each episode. They're just like, yeah, that happened in the last episode. Yeah, that happened in the last episode. I was just like, it's nice that they call back, and it's not like, oh, we just had a one-off episode, Yeah, and also it brought back with the Prince Raj in the beginning of the first episode, which wasn't really liking at all, and really just seemed like, I'm gonna be a bad prince to be a bad prince. And really, when he showed up in an episode, and I wasn't really fond of him being there, but he was all right. I mean, he wasn't really anything. He just kind of brought back some drama for the prince and Snow White and the brother and everything, and some funny business that happened. But for overall, the bad prince, I'm gonna call him, he was okay. The last episode of the show, it was weird, because last episode of the show, I was kind of expecting what they were. I was expecting it, but also from the great episode of 10 and 11, because I felt like episode 10 was the kiss episode and episode 11 was the aftermath of the kiss episode, and I felt like those episodes were done very well for the show, and I was actually very surprised about the show. I was just like, oh snap, it was very surprising. And then the second episode, I mean the 12th episode, the 12th episode was really just a reinforcement of everything in the show, kind of just like we're all here together. I'm Zen and Snow White, reinforcing that relationship they have together and how they both are just like, we both love each other, but we also know that we want to do what we want to do, and we're gonna be doing that. I'm not gonna piggyback on you. You're not gonna piggyback on me. That we will both move forward together. And it was reinforcing this episode. I mean, it was kind of like a bore fest for me, really. I was just like, okay, I get this, I know this, you're reinforcing this. It had some fun moments in the show in the last episode, and I was just like, okay. Yeah, it was fine. It wasn't really anything, and really, I was expecting this because there wasn't really a true ending, because they are already going to have a second season. So it was just like, we have to have a reinforcement here, and a thing that says we're going to be moving forward in our relationship, so then we can have a second season. So last episode was okay, and it just, it was what it was for a second season to come. Art was really done well. I got it. It was very Disney. In some parts, the castle looked very Disney. The different world and stuff, the forest and everything. It had that Disney vibe, the scenery and stuff in the world. I was just like, yeah, that's Disney. I know that. Even the animation sometimes seemed like a Disney-esque like animation when they moved and stuff, or the faces they would make. I was just like, that reminds me of like Snow White, or it reminds me of like Beauty and the Beast on that animation and stuff. I'm just like, oh, that's nice. They actually put effort into doing this, and I was just like, okay. The music was nothing special. I didn't really feel like any of the music in the show really kind of moved me forward. I was just like, that's some nice music. It really reminds me of like some nice, Disney or anything. Like, it was really nothing. The opening was okay. The ED I didn't really like that much. So, I mean, music overall was kind of just It wasn't really nothing. Overall, the show had good dynamics between the two main characters. It was refreshing compared to any other romance that it wasn't really this wasn't a school romance. It was more about bringing in together two characters, Zen and Snow White, who both want to move forward in life, and they don't know really where they want to go, and then they learn where they want to go and how they can motivate each other to help them that way. And I was just like, that's very well done. The pacing was done well, except the first two episodes, and the last episode was kind of like just a reinforcement, but overall I thought it was fine. Lack of music was a disappointment, especially for the show. It was a disappointment based on how they were reinforcing the Disney aspect, and they didn't really put any effort into some like good music for the show. Overall, I think the show is a 6 out of 10. And if you want to watch another show, some recommendations, motherfucker, for this show, I would have to say Katsuki no Yona. Not really anything about romance in that show. There's a little bit subtle romance in the show, and it's more about a woman who is motivated to basically become stronger and grow up and everything, and not take any shit from like man or whatever. And another recommendation is Moribito. If you want to watch Moribito, it's nothing really of romance or pseudo romance in there, but nothing very big. But it's more about just a woman main character helping out, a very strong woman main character helping out a young boy go through life after he is basically trying, like a prince being executed from the king. So yeah, those shows are very good. Not really any romance, because there's not really any romance shows that I can think of that I've seen that really follow a old kingdom style romance like this. So if you really just want to watch some woman empowerment or strong woman female characters, I would really recommend these shows. So that was my review of Snow White and with the red hair. It was all right. It was all right. So I will catch you guys later. Tell me what you guys think about this show. I thought it was all right, and I'll catch you guys later.